and welcome to the April 8th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. I'm Blaney Miller, Chair of the Commission. As always, I ask everyone to please be efficient in your comments and avoid redundancy so that we can hear from as many viewpoints on as many cases as possible. We start every meeting with an opportunity for the public to comment on an item not contained on the agenda. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak on an item not on the agenda today? And seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. We have one item on consent, Z7022, at Glenwood Avenue, Lake Ann Drive, and Winchester Drive. We heard this item at our last meeting where there was some open question about whether the applicant could make additional changes to the case. Since that meeting, our staff attorneys have determined that the applicant may make additional changes, and the applicant has expressed their desire to do so. The deadline for action on this case is tomorrow, April 9th, so the applicant has requested an extension in order to make changes. The proposed timing on consent, is it 60 days on? Yes. So the consent agenda recommendation is to request from council a 60-day extension of our Planning Commission review. Is there any discussion on this topic? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? By show of hands, is that a yes, Commissioner Burnett? Yes. Yes, thank you. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Could I just clarify exactly when this item will come back? Is it
Yes.
the...
If council should grant our 60-day extension, then the applicant has requested that we hear this item again at our May 27th Planning Commission regular meeting. Okay. So assuming that that is granted, we will defer that case until that time without objection. Thank you. Moving on to committee reports. There's one item under committee reports from our Text Change Committee, and we will now turn to Committee Chair Otwell for the report.
Thank you, Chair Miller. On March 19th, the Text Change Committee met to hear a discussion on TC 10-24, which is, in short, it removes garages from the gross square footage for the maximum size for cottage courts. It was a citizen petition text change approved by Council on 24th for consideration, and staff came to us with this change. The issue has been that because garages were included in the square footage calculation for cottage courts, it was making it difficult to market the product. The petitioners talked about how a recent change to the ordinance had revised things where they had been building cottage courts with garages that were not included, but the change has required them to detach the garages, which are not as marketable, or create a much smaller square footage living space. The text change removes garages from the gross square footage area and instead applies a, instead of measuring gross floor area, now it's going to measure conditioned space. And it allows a maximum of 500 square foot unconditioned accessory, either attached or unattached, which could be used for a garage or shed. So in effect, it increases the accessory area by 50 square feet and removes garages from the calculation for the living space. There was a unanimous approval to recommend, unanimous decision to recommend approval from the Planning Commission. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to discuss. And if not, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Then I'll entertain a motion.
All right. With respect to TC 10-24, I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated April 8th, 2025, contained in the agenda materials, and to recommend approval of the zoning text amendment.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I do have one quick question. I was looking through this, and I apologize because did not participate in the committee part because I had to miss that day. But increasing, I would assume this would increase. I know it's a very small amount, but increase the impervious area by 50 square feet on any given cottage court lot. I hadn't seen anything in the report about stormwater on that, so I'm just curious if they had a take on it, because it seems like it would increase the impervious area, holding all else equal.
I believe that impervious surface is limited more by the setbacks and the minimum lot size arrangements for the development. And that's what will, it'll still maintain the same impervious allowances as prior.
Okay, so it would not hold all else equal, it would?
Correct. And they'd still be subject to all the stormwater rules from the new stormwater manual.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Well, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to old business, we have one item on the agenda today. It's rezoning case Z4324 at Athens Drive. For this item, the commission has already received a full staff presentation, applicant presentation, and heard from the public. Our focus today will be on any updates or changes to the case since our last meeting. And we will now turn to Matthew Burns for a presentation from the city.
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the Planning Commission. Matthew Burns with Planning and Development. So this case last appeared at the March 11th Planning Commission meeting, and since then, the applicant has revised the request from a general use to a conditional use rezoning, and your deadline for action is May 10th. Just a reminder that this site is in southwest Raleigh, pretty close to Lake Johnson and the Crowder Woodland Center. The applicant is proposing a single zoning condition which would prohibit retail, eating establishment, cemetery, and outdoor sports facility uses. And just a reminder that this request is going from a residential to a mixed-use district, which would allow for an increase in entitlement and unlock some building types that are not permitted in R4. And this request is consistent overall with the comprehensive plan, inconsistent with the future land use map. And consistent policies are related to managing commercial development impacts, housing variety, and zoning for housing, whereas inconsistent policies are related to the future land use map and then response time standards for fire. So if this request were approved, then the future land use map would be amended from low-scale residential to medium-scale residential. Your deadline for action is May 10th, and there are no outstanding issues. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. We have already received public comment on this case, but so I can get a sense, by show of hands, are there any members of the public who'd like to speak on this case today? I see a few. In that case, I would like to grant an additional 5 minutes to each side. We'll start with the applicant and those in favor. Please come to the podium and introduce yourself.
Good morning. Thanks for hearing us again. My name is Arthur Gordon, longtime resident here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I ran the Irregardless Cafe for 45 years. This was the first restaurant in the city to be vegetarian, to go non-smoking tobacco. It was part of what was the right thing to do 50 years ago, and we feel like this piece of property is the right thing to do now. We've owned the garden for 12 years. And I don't know if I made it clear last time, we were one of the first applicants. We helped redo the UDO so that there could be community gardens within the city of Raleigh, and we were the first community garden. We've been running it as a community garden. The food was going to the restaurant. And then in the last 3 years, we made it more of a private situation where we had a farmer on site. She used the acreage, produced $90,000 worth of sales last year, selling at the Cary Farmers Market. So we feel like it's not a pie-in-the-sky idea that we're going to put a garden there. The idea being that it's already shown that a garden can produce enough revenue to pay for someone's salary. At the moment, I'm volunteering and teaching cooking at Athens High School 1 day a week. So we feel like we're part of this community. We don't feel like we're dropping in from Atlanta or someplace. We feel like that we are sensitive to the needs. The street itself is wider than a neighborhood street. There's literally a bus stop right out in front of the place. It just feels like it can bring together populations with a affordable housing, maybe co-housing, co-ownership. Different things can be tried at this space. But the key piece for me, for my wife and I, is that the garden itself becomes the focus to not only offer affordable housing, but also to offer purpose, so that people have something to do that puts them in part of this community and the shared space, but more importantly, the shared community lends itself to what we think is unique about this piece of property. We don't feel like that we're asking for 20 stories. It's a 50-foot, 3-story building. Wouldn't be much different than, say, a large mansion that we build in other parts of the city. And we didn't add any other conditions in terms of stormwater, because if the garden part goes through, we want the water. We want to retain the water. We want cisterns. We want to use the water. We're not trying to run it down the hill. In terms of traffic, there's not much we can do about that other than the street's wide enough that with a stoplight there, I think everything could be handled without very much expense. There's lots and lots of benefits to having a garden. Obviously, the food supply, health purposes, it creates community, and there's environmental benefits of urban agriculture. So we like this idea. Since we brought it up the last time, we got a little bit of press in the Indy. People reached out to me and were very, very positive about it. And also there was a lot of interest in nonprofits willing to step forward and help with disabilities of different kinds, that certain amounts of the apartments could be used and it wouldn't all just be for one particular type of group of person. So we feel like that this has far-reaching, but the piece that I like the best about it is that I feel that it is replicable, that this is a 2.5-acre tract of land. We're not talking huge pieces, that the city itself speaks to the fact that it wants affordable housing, but once you have affordable housing, how do you create a community that wants to live on that property, that wants to take ownership of that property? And we feel like that this uniqueness around a garden would really serve Raleigh well. And once again, we'd like to be pioneers in trying to make this happen. Thank you very much.
Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak in support of this project? Then, seeing none, we will move on to public comment, additional public comment for anyone opposed to this case. Please come to the podium. You have a total of 5 minutes to speak.
Good morning. Hearing Mr. Gordon talk this morning, I have to agree that this sounds like a really great thing. For the people that live adjoining that property, all 29 homes of us, we can't see our way clear to be in favor of this at all, because once Mr. Gordon sells the property, he loses control of that and has expressed no interest to stay involved with whoever he sells to. So our fear is we're going to have 67 apartments up there, 10 stories higher than what's allowed to be built in R4 right now, with increased traffic right at an intersection of a school. We just think it's not the right fit, being as how the Gordons are going to step out of this at the end of the sale. He said before in some of the public comments that they were tired, they were 75, they were wanting to step away, and I totally get that. And but if you're going to invoke something like this, it would seem that you would have to stay into it and stay committed and involved from this point forward, and he's not seen that. So we're not in favor of it simply for the fact that we don't see this really being able to come to fruition because the leadership won't be there, and he has no control over who he's going to sell to. So.
Thank you very much. And could you introduce and share your name again?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Larry Shelton. I'm one of the homeowners in the Athens Woods neighborhood behind.
Thanks so much. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak in opposition to the case? Then, seeing none, we can bring it back to the table for additional discussion and follow-up. Who'd like to get us started? Commissioner Fox.
Overall, I think it's a very interesting project that has the potential to be a model, as you mentioned, Mr. Gordon. If I take that out of the equation, the current ownership or leadership, which I understand is a concern to the neighbors, I am supportive of putting density near a school, just in general. So at the appropriate time, I'm ready to support this case.
Thank you. Other thoughts from the commissioners? Commissioner Otwell.
Thank you, Chair Miller. I was hoping staff could refresh my memory on what the setback and transitions rules would be for a RX3 mixed district next to the R4. Is it R4 or R6?
I believe they're R4.
R4, correct. Yeah. Thank you.
So the neighborhood transition would require at least a 10-foot separation between the mixed-use district and the residential districts, and that could include something like a fence and plantings. There are several different options that you can choose as part of a neighborhood transition yard. So it would be up to a future developer which option they chose. But at least 10 feet.
Thank you. Additional comments from commissioners? Yes.
I have a question. I know that in the last Planning Commission meeting, there was some concern around the lack of conditions for this case because of, like what the gentleman said, once this property is sold, as much as this sounds like a great vision, whoever buys the property is up to them. So even when he speaks of affordability or putting a community garden there, that's not certain because of the lack of conditions on this case. And I think that the last time that they were here in front of the Planning Commission, a couple of commissioners said that they would be more willing to support it if there were conditions. Can I ask why there are no conditions?
So the applicant did revise the case from the last time it appeared from a general use case, which does not have any conditions, to a conditional district. And they added this condition, which prohibits certain uses, including retail, restaurants, cemetery, and outdoor sports facilities.
Right.
So those are uses that are otherwise allowed in the RX district that they're asking for, but they chose to prohibit those since especially retail and eating establishment are generally considered more intensive uses.
And just so I'm understanding, or I'm clear, like, can there be conditions that lead the property to what he's saying he wants it to be? Like, yes, those conditions were added to make it to where there's no retail store, eating establishments, all of that type of thing, but that doesn't speak to his vision for the site. So is it possible for there to be conditions that speak to the vision of the site?
So I believe community gardens are permitted by right in RX. I can double check that to be sure. In terms of affordable housing, we sometimes see conditions related to affordability, but they would have to be offered voluntarily by the applicant.
Right, which would be him.
Yes.
Can I ask them,
Sure.
like, since he's saying he wants affordability, and this is not a mandate from us, since he's saying voluntarily that he wants affordability and things of that nature, then why isn't that a condition that you added?
Would the applicant like to respond?
I'm not going anywhere. You know, I mean, I may be 75 years old, but, you know, the vision of what this is intended is something that I want to see all the way through. And since the last time I've here, I have not reached out to other developers yet because I wanted to see if we were going to get the zoning or not. And just in the amount of interest since I spoke to you last time is that Hope, North Carolina has spoken to me. The UNC Center for Excellence in Mental Health has spoken to me. CASA has spoken to me, and POA has spoken to me. So the people that I'm reaching out to are people who are tied into this vision. And so I don't want to saddle them with saying, oh, you can only do this. They may find that they have other reasons for doing it. The same reason why I didn't put conditions on for stormwater. I'm figuring that once we get to permitting, then the impervious, things get taken care of under the permits that are already there. So I'm trying to open the vision, not channel it too much so that no one else can possibly do the project. Not just because I'm not familiar with all the different ins and outs.
Thank you. Thank you. If I may follow up with a question from staff, I do want to acknowledge Commissioner Omakaye's point that we did hear from many neighbors last time that had many concerns, particularly with respect to the commercial uses and the potential commercial uses. I too had concerns about that when you add a new commercial use in a residential area, the type of restrictions we typically see or conditions on those cases with respect to noise and hours of operation and those kind of things. By eliminating the uses for retail and eating establishments, could you help us better understand the potential commercial uses that would remain?
Sure. So some commercial uses that would still be allowed would be offices, medical, which includes some medical offices, daycare homes and daycare centers, hospitality house, and health club, beauty salon, optometrist, things like that. So, and I believe also bed and breakfast and short-term rentals. Those are all commercial uses that would be permitted under this requested zoning. And to follow up with Commissioner Omakaya's question about the community garden, so it is permitted in RX, but it's subject to some limited use standards, including a certain percentage of sales. There's limitations on how much produce can be sold and locations of tents and signs and things like that. But yeah, I would say medical and office are the big commercial uses that would still be allowed.
Okay. I will say, while I'm supportive of density here, my concern is more with respect to the commercial and the residential area, not with respect to adding density. I think there was some open question from one of the neighbors about the height, the changes in the height entitlement. Could you clarify the difference between what's permitted today and what the proposal, and how that would change the height?
Yeah, certainly. So currently, the height limit for detached houses and single-family homes would be 40 feet. That would still apply in this mixed-use district if they were to build a single-family home or a detached house, but an apartment building or a general building could go up to 50 feet.
So just 10 additional feet?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll also note that regardless of commercial uses that are, the office uses and that would still be allowed would be limited to a maximum of 4,000 square feet. And most of the commercial uses that would still be permitted under this zoning are subject to specific standards to limit their impact and their footprint. So in some cases, that's hours of operation, and the square footage is the big one too.
Okay. So these remaining permitted uses would have limitations on hours of operation?
Not all of them, but some of them do.
What do you think are the remaining uses that are potentially the most intensive?
I would say probably office would be.
And there's
bigger
no
one,
time
and
limits there?
I'm sorry?
And there's no time limits with respect to those?
I can double check
For hours
you.
of operation?
I'll need to double check just a second.
I know typically the concerns with office buildings in residential are more related to parking and those kind of things, less about hours of operation. But while he's looking at that, other comments from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Peeler?
I'm just curious. I hadn't recalled seeing convenience stores outlined in a condition before, and I didn't find it in our UDO. Is that a thing we've done in the past, specifically, what defines a convenience store? Because I couldn't find that in any of the city's language.
So we discussed this internally, and I spoke to the applicant about it. So retail is the umbrella, commercial use, and it does list convenience goods under that list, but prohibiting something as specific as a convenience store is tricky because what is a convenience store? That definition might vary from person to person, and since it's not a principal use, that's normally what we see prohibited. So after discussion with the applicant, they revised it from convenience to retail store.
Okay.
Retail is a little bit more specific. Convenience can be up to interpretation and is harder to enforce depending on what kind of business would want to go in the spot. And to answer your question about office, it is subject to hours of operation between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m.
Okay, thank you very much. Other comments? Yes,
I
Commissioner
have
Fox.
a question for staff. Just, it might be outside the confines of this particular case, so I might be asking you about other projects with affordability in them, so other affordable housing projects that I'm thinking of around Raleigh. Often they have within the building some type of medical service provider or an office or a daycare. Has that been the experience around Raleigh with other affordable housing projects? Am I remembering that correctly?
Not that I am aware of, but it's possible. I'm not sure, though. I've not encountered that personally.
I mean, I could speak to that. If you're talking about like a LIHTC or tax credit project, within the site, it's actually not allowed to have retail because of how tax credits work.
No,
But-
not retail. I'm
but
not
you're
asking
talking
about retail.
like daycare, medical, that
So
could
sometimes,
be.
yeah,
on-
there's daycare on site, there's sometimes a medical service provider, often a mental health service providers occasionally included. I'm thinking specifically of a project I'm working on in Durham. I would imagine it's pretty similar in Raleigh.
When it gets into like office uses of like a private medical care, I'm not sure. I think it has to be on site for the residents only, I think, but I'm not sure about that. I'd have to look that up.
That sounds accurate. Okay. I'm imagineering why we might keep those as potential uses in an affordable project.
Mr. Burns, can you clarify whether that condition prohibits those uses as primary use, principal use?
Yeah, they are principal uses.
And so do you believe that accessory use would be allowed, those types of use?
So for medical, I think you mentioned medical daycare. The list of medical uses that would be permitted subject to limited use standards in RX would be ambulatory surgical center, blood plasma donation, urgent care, medical clinic, medical daycare, things like that. So like smaller offices. In terms of accessory uses, they would not be able to do like an accessory retail store since they're prohibiting it, the principal use. I think that's what you're getting at, Bynum.
Thank you. Commissioner Burnett?
Question for the applicant. What has the school administration or faculty, what has been their feedback? Pro, opposed? And a two-part question, actually, regarding public transportation. If you could shed some light on that for me, since I'm kind of new to the table. Thank you.
In terms of the school, it's been hand in glove. Athens Drive also has a Future Farmers program. They have goats on campus. They want to do a garden. So there has been crossover. They don't have to get a bus to come over. It's literally considered part of the property. They just cross the street. Some of the classes have come over and done marketing programs. Some have done farming programs. Some have done just plantings. There's been a constant confluence. It's an asset to the school. And in return, I guess I was thinking, how do I make this happen? And I realized, gee, if I go across the street and teach cooking then I can't tell you how exciting that has been for me. It's, you know, I'm now talking to 15 years old kids, and I'm giving them something active to do every day. I've created a tremendous relationship. They're really enjoying it, and the school's getting ready to do some major remodeling. But, you know, one of the ideas that we've been trying to work on is that the school itself has a garden, but during the summer months, there's nobody there that can tend to it. We have somebody on site who's dealing with gardening, and we could create a confluence where they could, you know, watch over it during the summer months so that it's available during the fall and the winter when they're there. The other question you asked about transportation, well, I think it's bus number 11, stops right in front of the place. So this would eliminate the need for a lot of parking for people. You wouldn't have, the city doesn't require parking permits, but the fact that not everybody has to have a parking permit would add to the value of this property. And the ideas that we were talking about with commercial is the small room where you have the mental health person coming, or where you have families that are working and can't get back until after 5 o'clock. Someone could watch over your children. We're not trying to create a commercial space. We're trying to create a safe space that the community watches over everyone else in the community.
Thank you. And I'll add one additional issue about the school from the last meeting was there was some concern if there was a retail store across the street that might be a draw for those high school students. But now that use has been prohibited, I believe that would ameliorate those concerns.
One thing I do think is important, that the distinction between retail and or convenience store is kind of fleshed out. I just don't see a community benefit to having a convenience store that close to a high school, AKA Broughton High School. It's just something that I see quite frequently. So I don't want to pigeonhole the project, but I do think that's an important concern, not to have a convenience store in that close of vicinity to a high school.
Yes, so they have eliminated, the new changes to the case at this meeting, they have now prohibited those uses. So they can no longer have those uses across the street from the high school. So I think just for me, the new prohibited uses, the limitation on the commercial square footage, and also the realistic economic viability of other commercial, what's there, I'm satisfied that those the new prohibited uses do address a number of our concerns that we had, or at least my concerns and some of the neighbors' concerns as well from the last meeting with respect to hours and intensity and that kind of thing in this area. But other thoughts from other commissioners? Commissioner Peeler.
Yeah, this was a difficult case for me. I had to think about it a lot. Ultimately, I try to always go back to our future land use map, which this is inconsistent with. And I think it's a great thing to have density near schools, and I think the vision is a good thing. That said, at the end of the day, it's kind of a spot zoning. It's essentially taking a thing that's inconsistent with our comp plan and saying, let's virtually condition-free, let's upzone it while being inconsistent with our plans as a city. And I don't think that's a great practice. I don't think it sets great precedent. I do understand the local neighbors' concerns about retail near the site. However, I also think we do need eating establishments and sometimes retail in neighborhoods. I think some of the best cities in the world have that. So I'm always hesitant to take those things out when we're upzoning to mixed use anywhere, because that to me is kind of the point of mixed use zoning, is for it to actually be truly mixed use and have a thing that's walkable, be able to get food down the street from your house. So, you know, I think if this was more aimed at actually, we knew it was going to produce affordable housing, I might think differently about it, but the inconsistencies, I think, surmount what it brings. And I don't think I'm going to be able to vote for it for that reason.
Thank you. Other comments from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner McKay.
Part of my concern also is I appreciate that it is that close to a transit stop, but I'm wondering the density of that transit stop and how frequently people use it. And will this impact parking with adding 49 more units of housing there, how much will this impact, like traffic on the street, parking, things like that? I do have to piggyback on what Commissioner Peeler said about the vision is amazing, but once you sell the property, anything can happen. And without conditions, there is no guarantee that there will be this community circle, each person taking care of the other. And if that doesn't matter, because it should matter at least in the conditioning, if that doesn't matter enough to put it in the conditioning to make sure, as you're telling us this vision, that there's a better probability that this will happen, because like you said, you may not be going anywhere, but once you sell it, that's it. Like, they can do whatever they want with it. There doesn't have to be a community garden, so I do wish that there were more conditions, and I do wish that it was more consistent with our future use land map.
Yes, thank you. Other commissioners? Any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Otwell.
Thank you, Chair Miller. I also would like to point out that it's just about 800 feet down the road from a approximately 60-unit apartment complex that already exists there and seems to mesh pretty well with the neighborhood and the school. I'm really encouraged by the fact that the school administration and faculty is excited about this project. I'm ready to support a positive recommendation at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Other thoughts? Commissioner Hayward?
Thank you, Chair Miller. As I mentioned in the last meeting, I love the vision. I think Mr. Gordon's heart is in the right place. Appreciate the willingness to apply a condition. I'm okay. I understand the challenge right now of applying affordable housing at this stage. I, too, like the idea of additional density near the high school. And I'm just going to be consistent. I don't think I'm going to be able to support this for one single reason, and that is not necessarily the change in height. It's 10 feet, but the setbacks. Again, if I bought a house in a residentially zoned neighborhood and I'm adjacent to single-family residential zoned property, my expectation would be that if someone's going to come and upzone, that they're going to at least maintain the side yards and setbacks. It's going from 20 feet to like 0 feet. And if there was just a condition in there that would mimic a little bit more closely what the neighbors could expect when they purchase those properties, whenever it was, I'd be behind this 100%. But I think because of that one reason, and hopefully there's time to change that before you go to council, I think we've changed the ordinance a little bit, that you might have another shot to make revisions before council. I just want to go on the record to say that I would support this, but at this moment, I'm going to have to vote against it.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox?
Procedural question. Because it was a general use case and now it is a conditional use case, and we've been presented at one time with the condition that's been offered. Conceivably, is there an opportunity for amendment of the conditions or additions?
Are you talking about between now and the hearing? I think it has to be during council's deliberation.
So once you make a recommendation so you've seen a round of revisions during your review.
Okay.
So the applicant cannot review again while you are discussing the request. Once you make your recommendation to council, for example, if you made a recommendation today, the applicant would not be able to modify their request until council receives your recommendation. Mm-hmm. They could, so it'll appear on their report of Planning Commission, and at that time, they could take action to schedule the public hearing, or they could hold the request at their table, and the applicant could revise before the public hearing, or the applicant can revise after the public hearing opens.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Other comments from commissioners?
I did have a question actually for Commissioner Otwell. Were you meaning the apartments that are at the intersection of Athens and Avent Ferry?
I believe I'm seeing an apartment complex at the intersection of Athens Drive and Smithdale Drive, a little bit to the west of the site. just south of Kaplan.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that is, I believe on the maps, it looks like that's R6. And they are apartments, but it looks like they're built on R6 zoning, if I'm looking at the right thing. R10, sorry. The one next to it is R6.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to respond to the comment about setbacks?
I don't have any problems with that. The lay of the land is that this piece of property is literally at the top of the hill. So everything does fall off from there. And on the side that's closest to the existing housing, there's already probably a 15, 20-foot drop. So it would be, there would be no problem putting in or pulling it back further away just because of the lay of the land. Also putting up any kind of fencing that might be necessary. I looked at those houses that are on the other side, and most of those houses only have 2 small windows facing this particular property. So it's not like it opens up into the living room. It could easily be addressed. We would love to put in fruit trees and anything else that would lend itself to a farming process that would push it further away. So we'd have no problem giving up that space or adding another 10 feet or whatever the requirements would appease those that are concerned about it.
Thank you. I do share that same concern with Commissioner Haver. If the applicant does intend to make that change, I think we would, some of us, perhaps all of us, would also encourage that before council. Thank you. Other comments from commissioners? Then with that, I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Fox.
In regards to case Z4324, I move to recommend adoption of the proposed consistency statement dated April 8th, 2025, contained in the agenda materials, and to recommend approval of the zoning amendment. This recommendation also includes an amendment to the future land use map to the extent described in the adopted consistency statement.
And Commissioner Fox, did you have any additional comments on the setbacks that you wanted to, and if so, did you want to include them in the motion? If not, fine, just.
I'm not going to include them in the motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Then all those in favor? And those opposed? So that motion is tied. I can entertain an alternative motion. If someone wants to make one. If not, then we can move forward with no recommendation.
Friendly amendment.
Yes.
Amendment to my previous motion to recommend to council that they consider having the applicant provide additional setbacks.
Thank you. Do I need a second on the friendly amendment? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes 5-3. Thank you very much. I believe staff can help you follow up with the next procedural question. Thank you. Okay. And so that I have in the record, would anyone like to add any additional comments for the reasons that they are opposed to this case, other than what's already been said? Okay.
Chair Miller, again, I'll just add for the record that I'm encouraging council to take a look at those additional setbacks. I know it's on there, but I'll just mention it again since I changed my vote from deny to approve.
Thank you. I believe that should be reflected in our minutes as well, the change in the vote. Okay. Moving on to our next item under new business. We have one item on the agenda today. Reflecting Raleigh, an update on the next comprehensive plan, and we'll turn to Sarah Shaughnessy for a presentation from city planning staff.
Hi, good morning. Again, Sarah Shaughnessy, Raleigh City Planning, and the manager for the next comprehensive plan. I presented to Planning Commission last fall, so I'm just here with an informational update, share some information about what we've done. We're about halfway through the first phase of the process, so share some information about what we've done, who we've heard from, and what you can expect in the next couple of years. So again, just an overview. I'll provide a little bit of background and context for the comprehensive plan, our goals for the project, which we're calling Reflecting Raleigh, the project timeline and the activities, a little bit about the engagement and public input we've received to date, and then a note about some ongoing communication and coordination moving forward. So comprehensive plans typically have a 20-year time horizon, and they lay out a long-term vision for the built environment. North Carolina state law requires local municipalities to have a comprehensive plan or a future land use map in order to enforce their local zoning code and regulations. Raleigh, like many localities, has both of those things. And so Raleigh's comprehensive plan satisfies this legal requirement and guides land use and development in coordination with transportation, environmental resource protection, population growth and housing needs, as well as infrastructure and service provision. Our current comprehensive plan is the 2030 comprehensive plan. It was adopted in 2009 and updated in 2019. Planning staff reference the plan most often to evaluate rezoning requests in the consistency analyses we bring to you all and to City Council. The plan includes 6 vision themes, various policy maps that illustrate the city's growth framework, desired urban form, future land uses, and future street connectivity. The plan also includes a breadth of content on transportation, again, environmental protection, economic development, parks and open space, public utilities, community facilities, and services. So all told, the document is 18 sections long and includes over 1,000 unique policies and 1,000 unique actions. So quite a meaty document. Moving forward, so Reflecting Raleigh, again, is the process for developing the city's next comprehensive plan, which will include a vision, goals, and policies to guide growth through the year 2050, keeping that 20-year time horizon. And so for our next comprehensive plan, we envision a more concise document that functions primarily as a land use guide while addressing the connectivity between land use and those other topic areas that I mentioned. We also envision a plan that provides a framework for sustainable infrastructure and service provision as Raleigh grows, a clear vision for the next 2 decades with smart or specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound incremental goals, and a document that is informed by a robust engagement strategy that really prioritizes residents and neighborhoods that are typically underrepresented in city plans and projects. So I've shared this with you before. We anticipate a 2.5-year timeline for developing the next plan and dividing that into 5 phases. Phase 1 is focused on public engagement, internal coordination, and an assessment of existing conditions and expected growth. Phase 2 will focus on developing the content of the plan with a citizen assembly and several technical teams of subject matter experts. Phase 3 will involve drafting the plan, and in Phase 4, we'll get public feedback from the public on that completed draft, and then in Phase 5, we'll take the plan forward for adoption through the review process. So anticipating adoption at the end of 2027. Our specific goals and activities for Phase 1 with respect to engagement are generally to provide information to the public, to city staff, and to appointed and elected officials about the project, to collect input on community priorities that can be used to inform the future plan's vision and policies, so some high-level feedback of that nature, and again, to prioritize people and neighborhoods that are typically underrepresented. So some of the activities that we've undertaken and will be undertaking as part of this initiative are 6 thematic community conversations, engagement with boards and commissions, engagement with community and neighborhood organizations, including but not limited to the city's CACs, a variety of youth engagement opportunities, individualized communication with community leaders, a number of community events, as well as online surveys. So the community conversations, will be 6 topics. We've hosted 4 of them so far, looking ahead to 2 more. Each of them has or will include presentations from a keynote and expert speakers. as well as tabletop conversations using the World Cafe facilitation method, and then a series of Ask a Planner events where residents can come and speak to staff one-on-one if they still have questions, along with online surveys and in-person polling opportunities. So the 6 topics: affordable housing, transportation, stormwater, trees, neighborhood change, and sustainable infrastructure and services, were selected based on community feedback. These are topics that we hear from generally the most relative to zoning and land use change in Raleigh. So almost any time we attend a neighborhood meeting for a rezoning request or do some engagement around a small area plan or a special project, we hear from the public about these issues. So we are very grateful for the partnership with our Raleigh colleagues across the city in hosting these events. We've hosted the Affordable Housing Summit, which was our housing-focused community conversation in August. We partnered with Stormwater to host a stormwater-focused community conversation in December. Our colleagues in transportation and transit to host a transportation and traffic-focused conversation in February. We just concluded a conversation on trees and urban ecosystems with our colleagues in parks and urban forestry. And then looking ahead, we'll have 2 more, a conversation focused around neighborhood change that's coming up next week and the following in April, and then finally a conversation on infrastructure and services, which we understand to encompass sort of the financial and environmental sustainability implications of providing service as we grow. So the second half of phase 1, we're doing a lot of public engagement. Sort of in the background, we are also undertaking a number of sort of research and analysis activities to assess existing conditions and to kind of understand what Raleigh's population might look like over the next 2 decades. So some of the activities associated with this initiative include a community inventory, so an assessment of existing conditions, assets, future needs, a market analysis, an audit of our current 2030 plan and the policies contained in that plan, some stabilization planning research to focus on what policies we might set around specific neighborhood stabilization, and then a capital needs assessment thinking about what our future needs might be for the future of Raleigh's population over the next 20 years. So some of the specific activities that we've undertaken to date include developing an engagement framework. That's our community engagement strategy. That report is available online if you want to take a detailed look. It's on the City of Raleigh's Reflecting Raleigh project webpage. Again, we hosted an affordable housing summit, stormwater, transportation, and now trees community conversations, 9 different Ask a Planner events, presentations to 13 of the city's boards and commissions, 8 of the city's CACs, a number of small group presentations and tabling at different events. We also send out monthly emails to anyone who wants to subscribe to the Reflecting Raleigh email newsletter. And then we have a number of online surveys that are available and will be available through June. So anyone who is interested in providing feedback really at any time over the next couple of months can check out the surveys. Some numbers of who we've reached through these activities. I think we've seen a lot of engagement in person and even more engagement online. So all told, we've reached over 2,000 people, which we're heartened by. I know we still have work to do. We still have a lot of activities planned ahead of us. Given the amount of engagement we've had kind of online and in the digital format, we're also working to compile recordings of all our community conversations as well as the online surveys and package that in a way that we can deliver it to community groups and residents who might want to sort of explore or host their own community conversation and provide feedback to us that way. What we have seen, so we include in each of our online surveys a demographic module. These are optional questions and opportunity for people who take the survey to provide some information about their race, age, ethnicity, whether they own or rent their home, characteristics like that. What we've seen is people who offer that information on our online surveys are typically white. They're typically upper, middle income or middle income and homeowners. And so knowing that we're able to reach that segment of Raleigh's population online, we've made an effort to disperse our in-person engagement events across the city so that we reach residents who don't sort of fit that demographic profile or who might look different than somebody who's comfortable providing input online. So really trying to reach everyone and be creative about how we do that. apologize for the text-heavy slide here. Really working towards incorporating this feedback in phase 1, looking ahead to phase 2. So we have a summary report of all of the engagement we conducted in 2024, available again on the project website. We'll produce a full report of all of our phase 1 engagement activities at the conclusion of this phase, anticipated in July of this year. Again, all of the surveys will be open until June, so encouraging residents to take a look at that and provide feedback. Again, all of that feedback is going to be used to help shape the vision and themes and policies of the next comprehensive plan. We're going to continue to prioritize meeting people where they are. We are making an effort to reduce known barriers to participation. So all of our public meetings, we offer translation, food, childcare. We try to make it accessible, locations accessible by a variety of transportation modes, so plenty of parking, but also on transit lines. And yeah, again, using all of this input to shape the content developed in phase 2. So phase 2 will be developed with 2 general groups, a series of technical working groups of subject matter experts. So this will include members of city staff, local practitioners and subject matter experts, as well as representatives from each of the city's boards and commissions. So sort of reviewing all of the content and public feedback provided in phase 1 to craft policies and advise based on technical expertise what policies should be carried forward, what should be added to the next comprehensive plan. And then we are also working with our partners in the Department of Community Engagement to convene a citizen assembly. So this is a group, we anticipated it'll be about 50 people, that is representative of Raleigh's population as a whole. A lot of our methods can be self-selecting, so we often see and hear from the same slice of the Raleigh population. So we are making an effort to convene a group that more broadly represents Raleigh's population. And this group might weigh in on some of the more qualitative or subjective aspects of the plan, like the vision, priorities, tackle some of the questions that Raleigh's wrestling with as a city that are less technical and more sort of values-based. Phase 3 will involve drafting the plan, so working with staff and a hired writer to create a draft of the plan based on the content developed in phase 2. Phase 4 will take that completed draft back out to the public and get feedback through a variety of engagement methods, including public workshops, Ask a Planner events, tabling. We are also working with Raleigh Arts to hire an artist in residence who can help us think a little bit more creatively about our engagement tools and how we might reach people that don't often participate in processes like this. And then again, bringing the final plan with that feedback included for adoption in the second half of 2027. Just a note about continued coordination and communication, so sort of 2 parts, both internal and external here. We understand that there's a lot of related work happening in the city, so we are continuing to liaise and meet with different city departments, talk about ongoing initiatives with the Office of Sustainability, with the strategic plan, other processes that involve getting a lot of public input. There's a risk of over-surveying people, so trying to leverage input that people have already received and incorporate that where appropriate into this project. And then ongoing communication and coordination with the public. We respect that people like transparency and they like to be kept abreast of what's going on. So we send out regular monthly updates through the government delivery email service. We are pretty active on the Raleigh Planning social media. So this is a picture. Our communications team has been conducting this portrait projects, sort of like, I don't know if you've ever seen Humans of New York, but sort of man on the street, working, meeting people where they are and taking pictures and asking them to provide some feedback on what they like about Raleigh, what they envision for Raleigh's future. So this has been a really cool opportunity to sort of see different parts of Raleigh and see different residents, and again, sort of talk to people that might not come to a public meeting or that we might not interact with otherwise. So that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, this is just an informational update for you all.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from our commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Otwell.
Thank you, Ms. O'Shaughnessy. I really appreciate the presentation, and I appreciate the effort to get out into the traditionally underrepresented engagement communities. I do know that it's really hard for the city to get the word out outside of its traditional channels. I wonder if any of the in-person engagement opportunities, are they geared for events that are not necessarily tied to this issue in particular, like tying on to like Dreamville or larger festivals?
Yeah, so as we are aware of opportunities, so weren't at Dreamville, but other festivals that are happening downtown, if there's an opportunity for staff to go and table or just share information, we're trying to avail ourselves of that. We're working closely with the Department of Community Engagement and with Raleigh Parks. They go to a lot of events, especially now that the weather is warming up. They're out in the community a lot, so we're really eager to share information with them to pass out to community members as well.
Thank you. And a quick follow-up, is the city considering any more aggressive advertisement efforts, billboards or commercials, that kind of?
We have been advertising on the radio, specifically Raleigh, to try to reach the Spanish-speaking population. We're considering broadening that to across a number of different radio channels, sort of weighing. Radio is one of the most expensive advertising methods that we've employed, so sort of just trying to assess how much is worth spending on that. But we also advertise in the Carolinian newspaper, and are we're open to considering other ways to advertise as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
Considering that in the next, I think it's 5 to 8 years, the population in Raleigh is going to shift to be like 55 and up, majority. How is that reflected in some of your engagement and research around the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, I think so. We have been working to specifically engage with the local Meals on Wheels program, knowing there's a group of senior residents who are really interested in social activities and presenting to them. I think we're trying to really reach a broad spectrum in terms of age, catering to sort of the older population, but also to youth who will be the adults when the plan is fully realized in 2050.
Thank you. Other questions from our commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, Ms. Shaughnessy, I do want to commend you on the effort into the community engagement, the aspect as a native of Southeast Raleigh. I definitely understand the importance of including a lot of communities that aren't traditionally supplying their engagement and or feedback online. So I do want to commend you on that. I would also say or ask if there is any, if there are any, I guess, like physical pieces of collateral that can be like left at like different like small businesses, because a lot of the small businesses around the city and all of the districts see a lot of people. And so I was just wondering if that is something that is in play.
Yeah, we have flyers for each of our community conversation events that we've been leaving at community centers, looking to leave them in libraries as well, and any small businesses that would be open to posting a flyer for us. And then we also have just printed some postcards with a link to all of the open surveys as well as the upcoming community conversation events. We're working on a strategy to sort of deploy those to neighborhoods that are typically underrepresented through community connectors and maybe other staff.
Just as a suggestion, I want to piggyback on what they're saying. Kudos on, doing a diverse outreach to make sure that we're reaching people that are not necessarily spoken to when we're having these sorts of conversations. Have you thought about, since I know that you're working with the Department of Community Engagement, have you thought about working with the Transit Authority or Go Raleigh to post things at bus stops?
Yeah, that's a great idea. We do have bus ads. They're free for City of Raleigh, so we've been advertising on all of the Go Raleigh, not all of the Go Raleigh buses, but some Go Raleigh buses for our community conversations, and would modify that as different engagement opportunities become available over the life of the project.
I have a question about that. When you're posting them, is it just information, or are there QR codes?
There's a QR code. Okay. So there's information about the title of the event and the sort of location and date, and then a QR code for more information and registration.
Okay, great. And one more question. Are we using QR codes and online forms to pull in information so people can provide information on the go or in the moment when they are experiencing something?
Like a 311 kind of app, or I'm not sure I understand the question.
I don't know that it would need to be an app, but just like an intake form of feedback so that it doesn't have to be an isolated thing. It's just kind of like this QR code that has a form of whatever information we're soliciting or opinion we're soliciting. Has that been considered? Other than, like if a QR code just has like fixed information on it, and it's
Sure.
not a dynamic interface, the QR code, I think, is just less valuable.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. You can access all of our surveys on a mobile device, and so some of our advertising includes QR codes to the surveys, so people can take the survey on the go, trying to make that as mobile friendly as possible. Be an interesting thing to explore if we can sort of collect additional information from people when they scan in. I know we get some numbers information just based on like activity that we're using to sort of on a broader engagement level to track what methods seem to be most effective. But.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
One last question. With the population aging a bit more too, Commissioner Homonkaye's question, is there any specific information that you guys think is more helpful to collect now than there were, years ago with the population changing and with the, the population just shifting from a lot of out-of-state residents and so on and so forth?
Sure. So our next community conversation topic sort of deals most fundamentally with that issue. It's focused on neighborhood change and sort of gathers input on how neighborhoods are changing, what assets people like about their neighborhoods, what they might be flexible with changing to provide resources to more people. So we understand that change and those demographic and sort of built form shifts are happening in Raleigh, and they're happening at a pace that's faster now than it was 16 years ago when the plan was adopted. So we are collecting feedback kind of in that vein. Yeah.
Thank you. Other comments?
I just had a quick question about the affordable housing section and looking at I think it's cool y'all put in the percentage of the, how many respondents said a certain thing for main concerns. That's great to see. And when I look at some of those, especially the 30% AMI, lack of options for 30% AMI, and the number 2 one, affordable housing being located far from employment, those both kind of, for me, feed into something we talk about up here a lot and council talks about a lot, which is the destruction of naturally occurring affordable housing and, stuff that exists that's not subsidized and is cheap and is often close to services close to downtown. Will there be anything in the new comp plan that you know of so far that addresses that and kind of shines a light on how we can help preserve that from the aspect of the comp plan?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think we understand that that's an issue for the city, for Planning Commission, for council, for residents, is preserving naturally occurring affordable housing or below market rate housing. And so would certainly consider and are thinking of what policies we want to carry forward from the affordable housing content in the existing plan and what new policies might buttress those efforts even more.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, just in thinking about that too, it's like when we do our each rezoning case, right, and we see each consistency and inconsistency, we often have all these different sections that you all put on there that address lack of housing options, lack of market supply, et cetera. But that's one thing that doesn't get outlined in the report sometimes because I think it's not in our current comp plan. So it would be cool to see in the current one, as we look at each rezoning, what are we destroying there versus what we're adding, I think would be helpful, for me at least.
Sure.
Yeah. And I guess my last question, are we going to discuss the new comp plan at the commission retreat when we do that? Is that a thing we'll do, or will the retreat be after all the engagement is done?
It's a great question. We're still working on the retreat and finding a date and an agenda right at this time.
Engagement through 2027. I'm pretty sure your retreat will happen before engagement is concluded.
Sounds good. Well, I ask because some of the stuff on there, anyways.
Thank you. I have a question. One of the issues in our housing market that we've seen quite a bit is that a large portion of our residential real estate purchases are by institutional buyers, as opposed to that, by individuals that actually want to live there, and oftentimes they're just holding the properties, and this can create bubbles and artificially inflate the housing market. And Raleigh's has one of the highest percentages of institutional buyers. I think it's around 8% of all residential real estate purchases. Is that something that this comp plan update is going to look at?
We can certainly look at that issue. I think the rub is what we can actually regulate. We can't sort of control who buys a property,
Right.
And we want to set policies that can be enforced, sort of looking to, setting policies that can actually be implemented. But I think that's a really valid issue and certainly something that we'll consider and think about our policy tools, aspects of stabilization planning to sort of help residents and small businesses stay in place. I think considering institutional buyers is an important component of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what is to be done about that, but when we're looking at the destruction of naturally occurring affordable housing, those kind of things, it's because of to at least some meaningful extent, it's because of the institutional buyers that are just automatically coming in with these cash offers to buy up these parcels. And I'm not sure what is to be done, but it's I think just an important question, especially since Raleigh is higher than most other similar sister cities around the nation.
Mm-hmm.
So other questions? Seeing none, are there any members of the public who would like to ask a question or speak on this? If so, please raise your hand. And we don't have any there. Then with that, I'd like to thank you for this update, and we look forward to continued engagement through 2027.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you. Moving on to our next item, approval of the minutes for our March 25th, 2025 draft meeting minutes. We'll take comments for those, but in addition, at our last meeting, 2 commissioners abstained from voting on certain cases. And since that meeting, the city staff attorneys reviewed the issue and determined that the rules do not permit commissioners to abstain from voting. So we're going to review and update those 2 votes today. But before we do that, turning to our deputy city attorney, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think I did meet with a few of you, the new people, and made it known that I'm happy to answer any questions, just a phone call away, whenever you need.
Thank you very much. And for these 2 votes, the commissioners did email their votes, but I did just want to put it in the public meeting record as well. So the first item is rezoning case Z5224 at Lewisburg Road. Commissioner Peeler voted to abstain. Would you like to change that vote today?
Yes, and I think I responded to Bynum that I do want to change it to a yes.
Yes, and that is a public record. I just wanted to also put it on the record in a public meeting, an open meeting. Thank you. So we're changing that one to yes, and the minutes have already been updated accordingly for that. The other item is rezoning case Z1924 at Edinburgh Road. Commissioner Omakaye voted to abstain. Would you like to change your vote?
Yes, I also emailed in, but just so I'm clear, this case is the one where there was a model home?
Yes.
That was going to be built? I'd like to vote nay. I know I emailed yay, but I'd like to change my vote to no.
Would like to vote no? Okay, on the motion. Okay, so the minutes have not been updated with that vote to yes, so it's still, the minutes currently say to abstain, so we can change the minutes to change Commissioner Omakaye's vote to no. Any other comments from the minutes? Yes, Commissioner Cochran.
In some of it, my name is misspelled. It has an E on the end, but it should not have an E. It should just be Cochran.
Thank you. Good catch. Other comments from commissioners? Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Otwell has seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to other business, starting with report of the chair. I'd like to acknowledge our new planning commissioner, Brian Burnett. We welcome you to the commission, and we thank you for your willingness to serve in this way for your city. It's going to be a labor of love, and we sincerely look forward to working with you. And so we'll next go down to report of the members, and please do introduce yourself when we get to you. When it comes to committee assignments for Commissioners Omakaye and Burnett, I'll reach out to both of you offline to discuss your interest in committee appointments for the remainder of this fiscal year, so through June. And then we'll have new committees starting with the next fiscal year, beginning in July, but we don't meet in July, so it'll technically begin, so it'll begin in August. And with that, we will move down the line.
All right. Tax Change Committee currently has no items pending for the April meeting, so unless I hear something from staff, I don't believe that meeting will be taking place this month. I expect the schedule to pick up pretty significantly over the next couple months, so enjoy the break while you have it. No personal report.
Moving down the line, Commissioner Burnett. Nothing to report. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Brian Burnett, native of Southeast Raleigh. Excited to serve. I see the importance of this board and the value of it to the city and the residents, so happy to be here. Appreciate everyone's support, and I am learning, but I'm a fast learner. So.
Thank you very much. Moving down the line, Commissioner Fox.
Awesome. Welcome. We would have had a strategic planning committee meeting tomorrow. However, there are no items on the agenda, so the April 9th strategic planning committee meeting is canceled. We may have a meeting in the future. However, as of right now, there are no items pending.
Thank you. Moving down the line.
I don't really have much to add. I just want to welcome Brian, Commissioner Burnett. We've known each other for a while. We served together on the Planning Transit Authority, so I'm happy to serve with you again.
Great to meet you, Commissioner Burnett. No report.
No report for me.
Thank you.
Also, welcome to the commissioner.
I'm normally not the rule follower, but you asked us to introduce ourselves, so welcome. We haven't really had a chance to meet yet either, so maybe we can find some time to go get a cup of coffee. But Brian O'Haver, this is my third term, fifth year on the Planning Commission, so I think Blandy, this is your third term, and I think Roberta, this is your third term too, isn't it? So got some old timers here.
It's like 87th term.
Haggard.
So no report.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our report of the Assistant Director.
I don't have anything beyond what was included in the printed agenda or the published agenda. Welcome, Commissioner Burnett. It's great to have a full house. So happy when you're all here. It's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Love a quorum.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Then with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.